Alright, welcome back to Blue Exorcist Anime Review, episode number 35. We're here reviewing the 58th episode of the series known as Congratulations, which is also sadly the fourth and last episode of season 4 of the show. And yet, here's the weird thing. Next week, season 5 starts. Yes, believe it or not, season 5 starts next week. Do I think it might be 12 episodes like this one was in the last season? I think so. Given the fact it's going to cover just one story arc, which is the Blue Knight arc. Which that cover, I think, was like chapters like 100, so I think it was like 120, I think it was. It was a bit of a lengthy of an arc of one cloth. That's going on for a little longer. That's going on for like 33 chapters, that one has. And the next chapter is not going to come out until, I looked at it yesterday, not for 12 days. So that will not come out next week. That will come out the following week. So I'd say about 2 weeks from, I'd say Saturday at most. Actually, less than, it might be about like 11 days. So, we started this episode off with, well, quite interesting note here, where we have the group arriving in Kyoto, basically where Bone's family is, and of course, well, they arrive home, well, to his home anyways. You see his mom, of course, they're all very happy to see her, and then we see Shiro's family. We see his brother, his sisters, one of whom has a thing for Karo, I think his name is, the kid with the bald head. Yeah, his youngest sister has got a thing for him. And we see his eldest brother, who is like an exorcist who works overseas, who just happened to be in town because of this wedding. That's the only reason why. And then later we see, of course, Juzo, who is Bone's brother. Yukio does thank him for inviting him to the wedding, which of course he's very happy to do that. And what else? Oh yeah, and then we see, well, Bond's dad. Rain is very happy to see him, given the fact these two go along very well in season 2 of the show. Great to see the guy again, and I'm actually quite surprised they didn't mention the Impure King arc in this episode, which I would have thought they would, because indirectly this episode is a follow-up from the end of that season, where Bone's brother and this girl he's known since they were like very young, they got engaged. And basically, in a way, here's the thing. He offered Jews as a punishment for her actions during that arc. And her father's like, take care of my baby girl. And of course, sister's like, Dad? Yes. I think only reason also because I think he was seriously in love with her. That's why I think it was actually, his dad was asked to keep an eye on her. And he had a thing for her, and of course, they basically come for the wedding. And they do change basically what they're making. In the manga, they said they're making rice balls. In the anime, it's mochi. Yep, and we see Shima outside where Kuro is like, we see his like guy the creature he's being a partner with, which he has no choice in the matter. And of course, basically, he can't get him training because he has no stamina, which of course basically he agrees with. And then of course he's right inside. Like, there's a whole thing with Yuki in this episode where he's showing Muchi with one hand because one hand is broken. We do see a flashback from the end of last episode where Yuki is yelling at Rin over not being curious about how they were born. Yeah. He, of course, basically is not worried. Rin's not worried about it. As long as, like you mentioned last episode, all he was worried about basically is that his mother existed and she was a very nice person. For him, he doesn't really care about it at all. Yuki is concerned, I think, because he's jealous of the fact his older brother has got demon powers and he doesn't. That's, in case you're curious, is that theory valid? Oh yes, that is the main reason why that he's like this. And then, of course, basically we have a couple moments in the episode where Yuki's asking Bon, like, about visiting his childhood orphanage, which he did that I think just 2 episodes ago, I think it was. And of course, basically, and then later on, he ends up, like, talking to him, like, pulls a freaking gun on him. Yes, he pulls his gun on him, asking him, what happened the night I was born? And he's like, he couldn't exactly tell him. It's like, what are you going to do, shoot me? He's like, oh, I'm sorry. And of course, I ask him, what was that about? And he's like, please get your hand off me. I am your superior. And that's it. Yeah, it's like, one is friendly, this one's very threatening. We also have another scene in the episode where Lightning is calling Bon, basically just prior to his brother's wedding, about the fact that he's supposed to, keep an eye on, basically his office, and also the fact that, he later decides to investigate the doctor who was in charge of X-13, who was mentioned, I think just an episode 2 ago, I think it was just 2 episodes ago, I think it was, and he does meet him. He does basically admit, yeah, he was in charge of X-13, but he suspects, he's part of Illuminati? Not really. He has no proof of that because of the fact he's under contract. He can't do that. And of course, when he sees the mark on his neck, he's like, well, I came what I came for. Goodbye. He's like, I'll see you punch fist. He's like, I'd love to see you try. And that's it. And then we have the day of basically Bon's brother's wedding, where Bon is helping his father get ready. And they cut the bit out here where Bon is actually a prayer prior to put on a part of his outfit he wears. And Bon's father is basically doing the ceremony. Well, he is a priest after all, and he kind of indirectly is responsible for these couple hooking up in the first place. So, of course, basically, he'd be doing this. Because it's showing a flashback that he sent him to keep an eye on her. I think he may have suspected the fact this girl this girl was going to be his future daughter-in-law anyways. So, of course, basically, he sends one of his own sons to keep an eye on her. Because, of course, basically, the very same son who basically is marrying her probably had a thing for her all along because they were just their children. So then, of course, Bond basically, and of course they talk about his agitating, and apparently his brothers actually being jealous, like, okay, who's David compares? Oh, it's Lightning, cool. Because they think Lightning is a cool guy. He's a bit of a lazy guy, but he's probably cool. And then, of course, basically, Shizo's brother comes in. They discuss basically an exorcism with a guy named Toto. And, of course, possibly summoning him and, of course, excising it. And, of course, presumably do it later. And then we have basically where Yuki's sitting down. This is when he asks him first time about visiting the orphanage where he grew up in. That was the first time I asked him, and of course later on was afterwards. And then of course they have the ceremony, which of course you have the bride walking by herself. I'm like, where's her father? I get the fact it's a Japanese style. By the way, this is a Japanese style Buddhist. Well, it looks like a Japanese style Buddhist wedding. But I have one small criticism for this. Where's her father? Because normally and by the way, this is actually not the follow the anime. This is follow the manga for this. Because I've seen this before. There was a guy usually escorts the bride. They actually had one of the James movies actually recreate an actual Japanese wedding, and I did hear something that when this film was actually shown in Japan, it got a lot of praise for accurately depicting an actual wedding. It was short, yes, and the way it's set up here is like they have the guests all lined up on their. By the way, they're all on their knees, kneeling because it's Japan. They do this, and then these small tables. And of course, they're facing the aisleway. Now, of course, basically, I've been to multiple weddings here. People facing the front, not facing the aisleway. Then comes the bride, and then of course say their vows. And there's of course he puts the ring on her finger, and she's like, just freaking finger. I'm sure she doesn't like the fact she's getting married, but of course she's also pregnant too, which they mention that here that she's pregnant. Nope. There's no mention of it at all. Yeah, it was brought up basically in the previous episode, but here, They cut it. They cut the line, the fact that, she can't do any drinking because she's pregnant. Here, no mention of her for some reason, and she was barely featured in the episode. I think she was for like 2 scenes. And I think the anime cut off her dialogue. I am going to blame the anime for this. They cut her dialogue. She actually had a couple of lines of dialogue from the 2 chapters they did for this episode, which I forgot to mention. They adapted chapters 90 and 91 for this episode. And of course, then you have the reception, and then of course, lightning, and of course, I think it's like, Shimi calls up Yuki, calling the ex-wife to come back because it's short-handed, and also turn on the news, and there's a freaking Cyclops at the train station. And of course, Yuki's like, I think it was Riz like, how the heck is this possible? No demons ever basically popped up in the middle of a city before. Which that is indeed true, because normally put these things happen out away from the city. But this overall was a good episode, and I did enjoy it. And like I mentioned, we have 3 more to go, and that's it. Now, I thought 2 days ago that they were going to release the final episode of Demon Retry. For some reason, they delayed it by a week. I don't know the reason for it. It's the final episode. Why the heck would they delay the release a dub? It makes no sense. Heck, yesterday, they delayed the release of Fairy Tail One News Quest episode 23, which is the 3rd and last episode of season 1. That got delayed. I don't know why that was delayed. I get the fact that the final episode was delayed by a week due to production issues. I'll discuss later on, because that's one of several anime this year which have been delayed due to production issues, which that has been plaguing the anime industry last year. For some anime I watch get delayed because of production issues, which I'm ranting about that. I'll talk about that maybe tomorrow. Okay? So yeah, this particular view, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications, and do not hit this like button. Next episode for you. And after that, we have a final anime discussed, the catch up anime, and it'll be Bleach. Okay? See you. Bye.